In 2007, Paranormal Activity rocked the horror world and became a household name in the genre. It was a huge success and it has spawned 6 sequels. The story has taken us through the dark and tragic story of families haunted by one malevolent demon with a really stupid name, let's be honest. I wanted to explore this franchise that, in its early iterations, scared the shit out of me, then evolved into time traveling, warping plots that quite frankly make me want to rip my hair out a little bit. So I decided to revisit each movie leading up to me watching Paranormal Activity: Next of Kin for the first time. The first Paranormal Activity was released nationwide, theaters everywhere, in 2009 and is directed by Oren Peli. It follows a couple, Katie and Mika, who are experiencing strange things and decide to document their experience. Hauntings seem to follow Katie though, and the entity seems more and more bent on controlling her. I know I've told this story before, but this movie really did scare the shit out of me when I first saw it. I dragged my friend Cassie to go see it with me, and by the time that movie was over, we were running from the theater to her car. And I know that sounds a little bit dramatic, but we were 17 at the time, so I hope that's all the explanation you need for that. And I have never been able to get Cassie to go to a horror movie with me since. And that's a true story. I love the simple, minimalistic approach to this story. I'm very much a homebody, so anything, any kind of like house haunting story usually gets under my skin just a little bit. And Peli definitely took a few notes from the wild success of the Blair Witch Project by having a bare bones script that allowed for improvisation and of course relying on the characters to do the filming. That paired with a slow, realistic buildup of scary shit, from footsteps to shadows passing over doorways to Katie creepily sleepwalking, Peli was making sure that audiences were going to be just tense enough to have the shit completely scared out of them by the end of this movie when things start getting really intense. Like I mentioned in the intro of this video, this first movie was a huge success. Much like the Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity got a huge return on its very minimal budget, and its success spawned so many low-budget found footage horror movies trying to have a slice of that pie. Obviously not the first found footage horror movie ever, but I like to think of the Blair Witch Project as a well-fed campfire. Paranormal Activity is a bottle of lighter fluid that they just poured all over it. Paranormal Activity 2 came out hot on the heels of the first one in 2010. It's directed by Todd Williams, who ran with the idea of Katie and her family being connected to this demon, Toby. We follow Katie's sister Christy 2 months before the events of the first film, and we see a lot of the same minimalistic scares from the first film, with a little more of a research subplot to give a little context to the demon. Allie discovers that humans can make deals with demons for wealth or power by forfeiting the soul of their firstborn son. But if the deal is not fulfilled, the demon will stick to the family until another son is born, and it just so happens that Christy's newborn Hunter is the first male to be born on Christy's side of the family since like the 1930s. The film ends in line with the first one pretty much. We see Christy being possessed by Toby, but the family ends up transferring it to Katie. So after the events of the first film, Katie comes to kill Christy's family and take Hunter away. While critics were a little harsher on this sequel, the film did pretty well box office wise, grossing $177 million worldwide on a $3 million budget. The theme with a lot of these immediate sequels to Paranormal Activity is they were literally running with the timeliness. So it was just like bam, 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 one right after the other each year. So in 2011, we got Paranormal Activity 3. This was directed by Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman, and it takes us back to Christy and Katie's childhood, something they talk about fearfully in the first 2 films. The girls become more and more afraid of their imaginary friend, Toby. Obviously not so imaginary, or a friend, still a stupid name. This is set in the 80s and has that analog style that I feel like just makes found footage scarier. I don't know, something about it being tangible, I guess. I don't really know for sure. I will say I did like the cult twist at the end. I feel like it gave a little bit of validity to Allie's research in the previous film. It wasn't too out there or wild. Oddly, the only thing I found weird about this movie is that it starts with Katie bringing some boxes over to store at Christy's house, and they find the VHS tapes that make up the third movie. The way they intro it kind of makes it seem like adult Katie and Christy went and watched the videotapes. Like, they clearly didn't, and I don't know, that the intro just is like a weird way to frame the movie. Paranormal Activity 3 did a little better review-wise and remains the highest grossing movie in this franchise, making over $205 million worldwide. As you can imagine now, the next year, 2012, Paranormal Activity 4. This one is also directed by Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman. This is the first time we actually get a continuation of the story from the first film and not a technical prequel. This one is a little iffy to me. We found out through previous movies that the cult made a deal with the demon in exchange for the firstborn male. Well, at the end of the second film, they have that. It's a little confusing because there's a gap in time, and somehow Hunter Wyatt came to live with this other family, and Katie has her own kid, but that's never explained how that happened. I get that they were trying to add to the lore with Hunter Wyatt having to exhibit certain powers, I guess, before Toby could possess him. How did he get separated from Katie? Like, was it intentional? Was it accidental? I get it. I know why. We got to keep the franchise going. Where the series starts to go downhill a little bit for me. Like, the first three were really strong, and then a massive plot hole is the basis for the fourth movie. Then we got Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones, which was released in 2014. It was written and directed by Christopher Landon. Yes, that Christopher Landon, who I realized through the making of this video has writing credits for Paranormal Activity 2, 3, 4, this one obviously, and Next of Kin. Marked Ones follows friends Jesse and Hector as they uncover a plot from the coven seen previously in the franchise, now called the Midwives, who are now building an army of firstborn males that demons can possess. An interesting time rewatching this one because I realized I didn't remember anything really from this movie, because I think I checked out pretty early on. Because it was just so different from even the previous 4 films, but definitely hugely different from the first one. So as I said, I looked up some interviews with Christopher Landon to try and see if anyone was kind of like asking him about like the franchise up until this point, like the progression of the story. Found an interview from Coming Soon, and he had this to say, mostly talking about the fourth one and then Marked Ones. But he said, and I quote, "There is an end game at play here. I think the frustration is that we got a little lost in the fourth film. I think that was frustrating for the fans, and the Marked Ones was my opportunity to get it back on track. I think there are some fun moments and great scares, and we got some stuff right, but where we really dropped the ball is we didn't advance the mythology and left the audience in a narrative wasteland. A big part of my job on the Marked Ones is to win people back and let them know we're going to keep pushing things forward." And I suppose I can appreciate that sentiment, but personally, I just wasn't a fan. To me, I just feel like it's moving farther and farther away from that first movie. Wild to me how far we've traveled plot-wise. I guess it was either this or a bunch of sequels that are literally just like a carbon copy of the first one. And I guess in a lesser of two evil scenario, I guess I'd rather have this franchise. I feel like we really lost the plot though with Paranormal Activity Ghost Dimension. Right off the bat, the tagline of the movie was, "For the first time, you will see the activity." Nah. This film follows another family, completely different family, who lives in a house built on top of Katie and Christy's old house that had burned down. There's a plot with this new little girl being possessed because she was born on the same day as Hunter. Like, apparently it's not fun anymore if the firstborn boys we were all focused on through this franchise so far are now grown and fully possessed. This little girl who is apparently integral to this whole plot put in place by the midwives. Then we have these bits of Christy seeing the future, like back in 1992. After the events of the third movie, Katie and Christy are taken in by this cult, and Christy is like seeing into the future. My question is, doesn't this create like an endless loop in which this cult never succeeds? So Katie and Christy experience scary stuff as little kids. which leads to their parents dying, which leads to them being a part of this cult, which they track down this little girl in the future, in bringing Toby to this plane of reality in 1992. Because at the end of the movie, that's where they are. They go back in time when they go through that hole in the wall, and then Toby gets a physical body. Then some unknowable thing happens that the franchise has never touched, and Katie and Christy become adults and seemingly forget everything they did with the cult. And Toby is somehow not in his physical form anymore and needs to then go after Christy and Katie again. Do I have all this correct? Makes no sense. It makes no sense. That's not even including the dumbassery that is seeing the activity. The franchise was doing just fine without seeing Toby. I just thought we just had to see it because of this very convenient special camera left in this house. Mind you, it couldn't have come from the original house because the original house burnt down. So where did the special camera come from? Nobody knows. Sorry, got a little ranty there, and I know I said I wasn't gonna do those anymore, but this franchise just baffles me. And so it was finally time for me to watch Paranormal Activity: Next of Kin, which right off the bat is not intended to follow the storyline seen in previous films. So I can appreciate this. This one follows Margot, who is making a documentary about her mother, who came from an Amish community and gave Margot up right after giving birth to her. So I have to say, just a little aside here about these more modern found footage horror movies, because of the ever increasing access to really good quality cameras and equipment like drones and GoPros and things like that. Just a weird phenomena to see how this movie looked. Like, the shots are really, really good looking. They're just beautiful looking, but it still has that found footage feel, and it kind of fucks with my brain a little bit. Hopefully that makes sense, but it's like, I guess like I'm just still used to like that found footage having that like kind of slightly not great quality camera feel to it. But anyways, I feel like this movie was still trying to capitalize on that cult angle. And even though it's not a part of that original storyline, it was kind of just rolling with the idea of being out in the sticks and the other in society, and it's scary because normal people don't live without electricity and blah, 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 whatever. I feel like there's really nothing new going on here. The one weirdly specific thing I picked up on that I just want to talk about for a second, and I'm totally reaching here, but spoiler alert, the cult's whole deal is that the demon they're worshiping needs a female host to survive. And at first, my eyes were rolling so far into the back of my head you wouldn't believe. Like, oh boy, here we go. It's the women are weaker, so we get possessed easier, trope, blah, 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 blah. But no, it's because uterus owners are stronger because we have periods and give birth and shit and stuff like that. It's not the exact quote from the movie, but that's the gist that they were getting at. And it's low-key a backhanded compliment when you think about it, but I thought it was an interesting twist on a stupid and overdone trope. A uterus owner could get possessed, and like, would we even know? Because if it's not more painful than my cramps every month, I would have no idea I'd been possessed by a demon. I feel like I didn't fully appreciate the scope of how wild this franchise progresses so quickly until I watched them all back to back to back. It's really crazy to see the very quick progression of these movies from like super minimal bare bones movie to we're like out in the sticks with this fake Amish family who are worshiping a demon that they keep in a hole in the ground under this church that they've built. And what did I learn through all of this? Nothing really, I guess. It's the journey, not the climb. No, that's not right. Please, please share your thoughts about the Paranormal Activity franchise in the comments down below. I heard that maybe they're making more sequels more related to Next of Kin, so I'd love to know your thoughts on that and what your favorite in the franchise is and why. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new here, become a creepy peep today, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Until then, stay strange. Bye.